Okay, so I am Ross Levine. I'm the Bothell branch manager. Um, I've been here 22 years with Skyline, over 40 probably in total in real estate. That's probably why I don't have any hair, but that's okay. Um, Jeff and I, let's see, we've probably been doing this 2 years, the listing class,
Yeah.
and I've been doing it with for 4. And we've kind of always asked for feedback as we're going along on what's important to you guys because we're going to go over some of the forms. And as this class has morphed, um, a lot of the input that came in was, hey, it's great that you have the forms and that, but what I really need help is, what do I do? I got a client who's told me they want me to sell their home, but what about all of the other stuff? Because, I know getting a listing is a lot different than if I've got a buyer and I'm just showing them around and write up an offer. And it's true. There's a lot to get prepared for a listing. So we've kind of, like I said, morphed this together. So we've put it together where, we got some things we'll show you on how to prepare as far as, some advertising, signage, and those kind of things. Kind of like if you're a brand new broker and, hey, what do I do? One thing I always want to make sure before I start here is that when you do get a listing, you cannot advertise your listing until it goes live. So that's against the MLS rule. There's a fine for that, and they can be kind of hefty. So don't ever go onto your social media, for example, and say, hey, I got a great listing coming up, and here's all about the home and the address and that. And don't do that. They can find out about that. Also, putting maybe signs up early before it's actually live too. You don't want to do that. So that's very
No,
important.
that's a same day thing, that's for sure.
That's the same day thing.
Yeah.
Also, when you do input the listing in the computer for the MLS and you've got the paperwork all signed up with your seller, you have 2 business days to get that turned into Skyline, uploaded into our SkySlope platform. If you need some help on how to do SkySlope, talk to one of us branch managers. We can help get you started on that. It's not too difficult. Um, and then one other thing too is when we do show you some of these forms, we don't go through them word by word. That would take forever. So part of your homework, which you should do, is read the forms. And you don't have to do it all at once. I know, you can go brain overload on it. So just take portions of it, read one day, the next day read, page 2, page 3, the following day after that. You can absorb it better. So don't let it overwhelm you. So just getting underway here, I think what we like to start with is the very beginning. Okay, you got a phone call from, somebody or a potential client, and okay, they said they'd like to look into me listing their home. What do I do? I think the very first thing you should do is get a hold of one of your favorite title and escrow folks and have them send you over a preliminary title report. It's free. They're glad to do it for you because they want your business. And it takes like a couple of days, probably going to be 14, 15 pages long. Just gives you an indication of what's going on with the title on the property. And there's one page in there that you're going to need to have in order to make your transaction valid. And that is a legal description, other known as Exhibit A. And so that will be in the preliminary title report. You can just slip that out of there because that's going to be initialed and dated by both the buyer and the seller. So
One thing I would say too is make sure you read the title report completely, because there's some things that show up that you don't want to be blindsided. Liens and stuff like that, DSHS liens, contractor liens, stuff like that. That
absolutely
needs to be resolved.
Right. So I think what I'll do is we'll go into what Jeff and I have called props. So unlike going to the forms right away, what are the things we need to do in a listing? Okay, so we talked about getting the preliminary title report. Well, you should get yourself a little box booties here. These are all from the MLS, by the way. They have an MLS store. I know you can get one at a Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, but MLS sells these, so that's where I get mine. So you can get one of these.
You can even order all the MLS supplies online and they'll deliver it right
Yes,
to your
and
house.
they can deliver, you know, you can get your little booties ordered there as
Prices are
well
good
that they
too.
sell. Definitely get yourself a key box, like you see here. These aren't cheap though, with tax, probably run about 115 bucks.
Yeah, they still are. Yeah.
Still are, yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, once you get set up and do your classes, you got to do your listing authorization class through Matrix there at the MLS, and they'll, of course, teach you how to get onto their website and navigate through. But you get your little super box here, and then you know your phone here that you can unlock it with. This is all on GPS, you know, and the key is back underneath here,
And
and
Bluetooth.
yep, right. Tied to that, it's on YouTube, and this is where you can get all of your information as from listing that you'll get of who's been in the home and what time they've come in to show the property. So it's got some
And when you
security.
open your super app on this, you can program that lockbox.
Yep,
Yeah, you
yep,
can type in the MLS number, you can type in the address, all sorts of stuff. You can even do restrictions on times and stuff.
yep. Really, really handy dandy. So once in a while on our Skyline Facebook group page, there will be some um, experienced brokers that may be selling their lock boxes for a reduced price. You know, I usually see them anywhere from 70 to 80 bucks or
That's
something.
about normal, yeah.
So somewhere in there. It's usually first come, first serve, and maybe a Venmo, PayPal type of scenario. You got to go and pick them up from whoever's selling it. And there is a form or at least a sheet that you fill out, sent to the MLS. So you see who is now the new owner of the key box, and it'll have the serial number on the side here. So that serial number will be very important to have on that paperwork to switch that over. But you can find some pretty good deals on them. We've seen some people sell like 6 at a time. And I don't know if you need 6 right away, but they're pretty good price, you know, 70 bucks or so. So you can always look into that. I would always suggest too, when you contact your title folks, is you can get yourself a home book from the title company like this. If you've been looking at homes, sometimes you see these on kitchen countertops. They're pretty informative about the property and what's surrounding the property, local businesses, restaurants, anything is in here. And they're about up here, Jeff, about 15 bucks.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
about
get
the same.
about the same there. They could even deliver these right to your home, so you can get them right at your house.
Yeah,
And
I would
then,
say go through them though. Sometimes you want to eliminate some pages.
yeah,
Like
there are.
I see some pages where it's like what they originally bought the house for, and you know, the buyer doesn't need to know that. So
Right,
yeah,
right. So go ahead and tweak it, read
you
through
can
it.
put, you know, a couple pages, you can put your own promo in there. You know,
You certainly can.
yeah.
So it looks nice on a listing. And like I said, you put that on the front counter. Also, they'll also send you some of these, you know, some of the cards that you could put up in the home. These various ones. Of course, you could even get these type of things on our
Feature
website.
cards.
Yep.
These
Yep.
feature cards too, there's also templates on those available on the broker resource page for the Skyline Properties website.
Did
And
I
there's,
just say that?
huh?
Did I just say that?
They're
Yeah.
editable, which is really
Oh,
nice. So
very good.
like
Very
stay
good.
off the bed, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so back to the key box. You know, you see these on the front door
Yeah.
quite often. And you can get a little foam protector like this. So you slide this in here so it doesn't bang that front door all the time. You know, maybe your seller's got a new painted door. So this would be pretty good to put on there to protect it, make your seller feel good. And if, you know, there's some front doors now that can't work with a loop like this. So you can go up to like the front porch, for example, and if they've got, you know, a little railing on the balcony or something like that that leads to there, you can always look at one of these like little cables here. You know, you loop and a loop here. You could put it around the top of it, slide through the key box and lock it on there. And then the brokers can just use that because it's still hanging right near the front door. You've also seen these what, on meters, like gas meters, or on the side of the house somewhere where it's hung up there. And so that's something that you can also look at getting, that they sell at the MLS too.
Might give them a little
Now,
tip
but I gotta
about the
grab my
super boxes.
Skyline socks here too, if you know, I've these guys box accidentally here, but
One thing
okay.
about the super box, Ross, is
Yeah, there you go.
hey
If you
Ross,
want, if you want some Skyline attire now, Jeff, we have what you put together here. For, I know you weren't having this as part of the listing. I threw my socks in there.
yeah,
Okay, another thing to chat about here is signage. So you get your signs from some of the real estate sign companies. There's, you know, a handful that a lot of the brokers at Skyline use here. I know up north here, a lot of them use Sign Pros. I do myself, and they got a great website. It's signpros.net. And I'll send you some of the information on them as well after the class is over with. But they can manufacture, make the signs for you where they put your name on it, your cell phone number. Their website has many different types of Skyline signs, whether they're wood or they're made out of plastic, different sizes. Maybe I'll show you a sample of one here. So this is like one here. This is a wood 18 by 30. It's Martha Mendoza on there. She's got her cell phone next to it there. It's got the little hooks on top that you hook onto the yard sign, the yard posts, and those can be delivered and installed by the sign companies. So say if you're brand new and starting off like Bella is, and Bella got a listing, she could contact Sign Pros, for example. She could have her phone manufactured, excuse me, have your sign manufactured with her name and cell phone number on it. Give them the address of where you're going to have the sign and when you want it installed, and they'll come out and they'll install the posts and your sign on it there. What needs to transpire for them, though, is you need to give a good lead time, probably about 7 to 10 days. Because they have to do some surveys done with the utility companies. So utility companies are going to make sure they don't run into anything there. So they're going to come out and mark, you know, their little stripes in orange, blue, yellow, white, etc. first before they install that. So just keep that in mind that they do need some lead time. The other thing I know that both Jeff and I do is on when we order signs, we just have the sign companies come and install the post. And then we just keep our own signs, like I keep them in my garage and I go put the sign on myself because we keep better care of them. Sometimes when they're taking off
well, plus you want to hang it same day.
yeah, and you want it hung the same day.
I mean, I've got a sign behind me in my background. My signs are all vertical instead of horizontal, and they're made by Infinity Signs out of Lakewood. And they do a great job. And in fact, if you're new to Skyline, you're a broker before, they'll even reface your old signs for reduced price.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everybody will do that. So
yeah.
that's a big plus. Yeah. So anyway, some of the sign companies might kind of scuff up your signs because they're not going to handle them delicately like we would because they're our own signs. So you can do that as well. Okay, so I showed you a wood one. Now we have some generics. Like in our Bothell office here, like this. It's got the Bothell phone number on it. This is a plastic corrugated. It's not going to hold up real well in our Pacific Northwest weather, but if you need a generic, like if you're desperate to get a sign up, you can get one at one of the branch offices that you're in. I don't know what they run, 24, 25 bucks, something like that.
I think they're more like 34, 35.
Inflation.
Yeah, but they bill it. You don't have to pay it on the spot. They bill it.
Right, you don't have to pay it on the spot. They'll put it on the billing. But they come in handy when you're in a bind there. And you know, then once you get your own sign, you can take this down, you can use it again, you know, for some other time. But those are nice to have. And then of course you guys have all seen the different directionals. So like this, you've seen these that, come with the little metal and you pound them into the ground if you can get them into the ground. Sometimes there's some areas around where it's just really hard ground, hard for these to stick in. And so sometimes I'll bring a spike with a hammer and I'll just, hammer in some holes and then try and stick this in. And, sometimes they don't last. Again, weather or, smart aleck kids will come and turn the arrow the other way, so make sure you check on these every now and then because those things will happen. They get dirty, you can always come and clean them off. Hopefully your listing sells real quick. You don't have to worry about all that maintenance, but it does happen. I know I got 10 of these at Sign Pros for like $132. So what were they, $13.20 for 10 of them. But they, they're advertising for you because it's got your name on it. So best advertising you can get is for your own listings. So make sure anything you have on signage, get your name and your cell phone number. We also have generics of those at the office. This doesn't have like a Bothell, but you can get this, at any one of your branch offices here and have those put around the neighborhood as well. Okay. If you're feeling really good and you got a really nice listing, you can get one of these. This is for our luxury estates for a luxury home. If you believe that is a luxury home, you can always contact one of us branch managers and tell them about the home. It used to be several years ago that up here in Bothell, if a property was $1 million or more, then, we'd highly suggest you get one of these signs. Well, now $1 million, get you a 2-bedroom rambler. That's from the 1960s. So, you can always talk to one of us managers if you want to get a sign like that. Again, Sign Pros made this one. I'm sure all the other manufacturers got our artwork too, that they can have those signs made up as well. Jeff, I think that's it on the prop side. And any questions about anything I've gone through or anything, we can take them now before
Ross,
Jeff.
I was just gonna give them a tip really quick on that super thing. If you're out showing homes and your super does not work, hit the update button. 99% of the time it fixes everything.
It's a
Yeah,
little button.
or turn off your Wi-Fi. Because
Yeah.
it's trying to connect to an Xfinity somewhere, but it is normally, I don't know why it interferes with Bluetooth, but it does at times.
Yeah, it's the updates on the bottom.
Yeah,
And you just press it. Sometimes it's got a red X through it, and that means it needs to be updated. Takes just a little bit of time for it to run through, and like Jeff said, that takes care of all your problems from there. Was it Marina that had a question?
yeah, Marina Early.
yes, Ross. In regards to posts, the wood posts that go on the ground, you keep your signs and you hook them up. Do we have to buy those wood posts or we rent them from the Pro Signs?
Yeah, they're you don't keep them. You could say it's like a rental. Yeah. So what happens is once your listing sells or if it expires and you lose the listing, you just contact the sign company for a pickup and just give them the address. They
Yeah.
already got an order number for it and they'll come and take it out. But
I
yeah,
personally use an app called Up Sign Down. And they're connected to Greg's Post and Puget Sound Post. And I can go on site, it'll say order sign, and I'll take a picture of the spot where I have it marked, and I'll type in the address, and it gives me an option whether to hang a sign or use my own, and then it lets me pick the post. I recently did this, and I mean the post was only $41, and it stayed up as long as you wanted. Now I know that some other companies are twice that. So, but Puget Sound Post is still reasonable. And then you can even select the options where you can put a flyer box on the post for additional $5.
that's really good.
Yeah, so that's just it. And I don't know what's going on down the south, but my North Tacoma one, the post was up the next day. And then Ording was up the same day.
Wow.
I don't get that. Because I thought there was, unless some of the location laws changed, but I don't think they did. So,
Interesting. Geez.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, hope that answers your question. Any others? Okay, Jeff, if you wanna proceed, oh, June's got something up here. I would like to buy a new lockbox for my upcoming listing. Where can I buy it? Well, I just said this earlier, June, maybe you weren't on yet, but you can get them at the MLS, brand new one with tax, about $115. You can go to one of their outlet stores where they're at. I know in Linwood, they have them up here, or you can order one online and they can ship it to you, or you can see if you can buy a used one through our website, our Skyline Facebook group page. Okay.
Yeah, I suggest when you see people posting that they have them for sale, that's usually when I grab them too. So
Yep.
yeah, there's a lot of people that just retire or get out. So
Yep. There you go.
I'm going to share my screen. You see the class?
Not yet. There it is. Okay.
All right. Anyway, and
Oh.
hey, Lana, can you mute?
Lana, could you mute your yeah. If you just scroll down to the bottom, there'll be
There
like
you
a
go.
microphone. There you go.
You got
Okay.
it. Anyway, so this is get that listing. Ross and I've been doing this for a couple of years. Just a quick recap, a little class courtesy. Mute your mics as we talked about, but feel free to unmute and ask a question here and there. Our group is not so large that we can't do that. We like participation and we encourage it. There's no such thing as a stupid question. These classes are free and we have a ton of classes available. Just go to skylineproperties.com, look at the classes, and there's usually several of them during the month and all sorts of topics and escrow and I mean, lender sponsor classes. There's a lot of things. We try to offer a lot of tools for you to help you grow your business. So we're going to go over pricing a home. We're going to go over cloud CMA, which I absolutely love. I did not have this years ago when I was with someone else, and I love it. The listing process, listing materials, flyers, how to open title. Ross touched on that. Pre-listing paperwork needed, and then listing on the MLS. First thing when you have a listing process is you set your appointment. Usually when you first start, you're getting like a friend or a family that says, hey, I know you're got into real estate. I'm gonna list my house. So you set the appointment. You create a CMA, market analysis. Now it says you can use the Northwest MLS or Cloud CMA, but I use both actually. You'll notice when you're a Skyline broker that if you're in the MLS, and you're pulling comps and you're selecting properties, you can then use you can shift it when you get ready to do the CMA and you can select Cloud CMA, but select your comps in Northwest MLS. And I'm going to show how to do that here in a second. And then you do a walkthrough with the sellers. A lot of times you're pointing out stuff like reducing clutter, eliminating pictures, family pictures. You want the buyers to walk in and picture their own life there. And then any corrections that need to be done. And, they're looking for your advice. I usually, when I get done with the walkthrough, I go home and I usually send them an email or a recap of what we discussed. And then you also have to talk about what are their needs? Is the house vacant? Is it occupied? If so, how much showing, notice do they need 2 hours? Whether they're going to be able to get out on closing or if they're needing a rent back, anything special. Anyway, and then we'll go into the other stuff here in a minute. So about staging and, lockbox and flyers, but I'm going to go into Cloud CMA. Bear with me here.
It always takes a minute.
Yeah. I don't know if you're seeing my Explorer right here.
No, still on the same.
Yeah, it's okay.
listing
I'll switch it in a
process.
second then.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the MLS?
Nope.
Yeah, this happened before.
Yep. Technology.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, there it is. I don't know why it should just go with my now.
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm gonna go into the matrix on the MLS and I'm gonna do a quick CMA. So let's just say, so I'm actually gonna use something, I've done this before and it's usually successful. I'm gonna use within 1 mile of a house that I'm actually already working with, so it makes it a little simpler. You can find your house. You just type in the address of the property that you're gonna get ready to list. I'm gonna hit active, pending inspection, sold. I'm gonna hit residential right here. So I can eliminate the condos and stuff. The house is a 3-bedroom. I'm gonna put 3. You can put 3+ if you have more. Baths, 1+. A lot of the smaller homes still, the older homes have it, you know, smaller footprints and fewer baths, I've noticed. So anyway, this is a small house. I'm gonna go a little higher on this. There we go. I got 18 matches. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my comps as close as I can to the subject property, which is the property I want to list. So I'm right in here. So I came up with 18 matches. So I'm gonna hit results. I'm gonna change this view because all I can see is single. Well, actually, multi-line with comments. So I can see it. Oh, here, this is actually the listing I have right here. It's on there. Here's another one. I mean, it's smaller. It's in North Tacoma. I'm still gonna throw it in there because it's in the same ballpark. Here's another one. It's the subject property is 1,100 square feet. This one's 1,134. So I'm gonna throw that in there. Same with that. This is 1,000 square feet within a mile of this property. So you're trying to dial in as close as you can to the subject property to get a true comp. Some of this stuff might be totally different. Like this one here is just, I mean, the price is insane. You have to look what's been done on them. Some of them have, whether your house is dated or it's been totally redone, or you know, if it's got a detached 2-car garage or an ADU. I mean, there's special features to consider. Here's another one that's almost exactly the same square footage. A little bit smaller. This one's about the same square footage right here. So I'm gonna stop. There's another one that's about the same. So I've got a little variety of, see the red for sold, and then I've got some couple actives on top. So I'm just gonna hit refine, narrow. So now I only have, so I only have the ones I want to comp right here as my to the subject. So when you hit actions, it'll give you the option to go to the MLS CMA. Now the MLS CMA is very bland, and I think it's actually kind of boring, and it really doesn't show well. So I'm going to skip and I'm going to go to Cloud CMA. Now you all have access to Cloud CMA because you're Skyline brokers. I actually hired a new broker yesterday, and that was his second question before he signed up was, do we have Cloud CMA? Because they love it. So I'm putting my client's last name, the subject property, like is the listing that you're gonna do. There it is right there. It'll pop up. I'm changing this because there was an add-on to this home, a finished add-on.
Did you have a permit?
Yep. Yeah, I had to look up all that. Title
Alright.
can usually, I know Tycor can tell you that. So anyway, you have two options when you do cloud CMA. You can hit, like the MLS, I dialed it into the closest I could to that subject property. So all my numbers are right there. If you want to do what they call quick and dirty, it would automatically pick the ones that are similar. I found this to be, the range to be too huge. Because this house is on the market for $495. They would throw one in there that's 700 that doesn't even, it's freshly remodeled and new everything. And so you really have to pick them yourself. And then I hit fetch. So the low on this one is and 477. The median is 519. The average is 510. So the highest 540. And it shows all of your comps right here. Sold, active, all that. And then you just hit customize report. Now you're going to select all these different parameters. And once you select them the first time, they stay there until you change them. So each time you pull a cloud CMA, it's the same. So I've been working with this since, for the last few years. So this is the ones that I chose that work best for me. I can even do you can even pop in, like I'll do a suggested list price of based on the comps and what it says the average price is. I'm going to do 495, 500. And then just hit save. But then I hit publish. So if you were presenting this to someone, like on your computer and you're plugged into a large screen or something, you could do a live view, and if something was pending, it would actually change because it's linked to the MLS. But I usually just hit view PDF. Now I've got it full color, only 17 pages, which is small. You don't want to have a 45-page CMA to go through. Your clients aren't going to like that. So beautiful front shot here of Skyline Properties and Mount Rainier, and that's Reflection Lake. Anyway, it shows where the property is right here. It's prepared for the owners, the sellers. I always put a little bit about the company because, we're an enormous company. We have, huge. We have 1,200 brokers, 5 offices. 35 years, in the business. Skyline was founded 35 years ago. But then I do a quick page about myself. So it's just a nice presentation. And then here's a summary there's a map of all the listings in the area where they are. And then it talks about the ones that are sold. Here's the square footage, when it was sold, these were recently, and what they sold for, pendings, the active listings right here. Then here's all the details of each home. So you're going to go through this with your sellers and, talk about it. Say, hey, this one here, is built about the same year. It's a little bit smaller. Days on market was only 2 days. You're trying to get them to, you're going to realize something when I go through this. Get them to price it right too, because a lot of these, sit for a while. This is another one built, back during closer to the war times, like a lot of them. Days on market 18, days on market 49. And this here might have been because it was just priced too high. So, yeah. Another one on the market, 12 days, 28 days. So here it is. It's a really nice CMA to go in. Now what I do is I print this CMA and I use the Skyline folder. The CMA is on one side, and I walk into my listing with the listing agreement, the listing input sheet, the utilities addendum, the 22J if it's pre-1978, the lead-based paint addendum, the legal for them to initial, and then I have a complete Form 17 seller disclosure. I usually say, here's some homework. Fill this out and send it to me, or I'll pick it up next time. So I have a nice packet together. I don't like to walk out of a listing appointment and not have it signed. I don't want to send it to them electronically. If it's a friend or a family member, yeah, it's different, but it's your best time to get them to sign this is when you're in front of them. So, yeah. So anyway, free, lowest price, average price, highest price, stuff like that. And then it also, this page is kind of interesting too. It tells you what it's sold, but it also tells you what Zillow estimated it at. And I know that most sellers that I run into are always quoting Zillow. But one thing about Zillow is Zillow might say it's worth 490 and you list it for 525, and the next day Zillow says it's worth 525. So they change all the time. But they seem to be getting a little more accurate with their algorithms lately. So anyway, they're pretty close right now. Yeah, look at days on market, price per square foot. That's insane. God, I remember when I first started real estate, it was like $200 a square foot everywhere.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, there's the suggested price that I put in, and then you've got a full color CMA. Now, if you're in the same one and you want to make a flyer on this, something to put in the box, something to put on the table. Pull it up, or you can just type in the MLS number, but I didn't have that memorized. So now if you're going to go out and do an open house, even if it's not your listing, you can type up these flyers and it'll come up with all of your information. So you can go to the open house and hand out your flyers with your, for that house and your information. Just make sure you don't leave them if it's not your listing. So just hit customize flyer. So here is this home. And this is actually on the table in a nice little flyer holder next to business cards and stuff. So great, easy flyer. You can do it in a minute. There's also all sorts of different layouts. You want something simple. Sometimes I'll do something simple too in the box. One thing I've learned about putting flyers in boxes, sometimes they end up all over the place. Sometimes they end up all wet. And then other times some person sees one picture in the flyer that they don't like and they don't even call. I'd rather have them call on the house and at least get in the door. So be selective. Any questions on Cloud CMA at the moment?
Do you do the
Angelina?
adjustment before you send out the CMA?
Can I what?
Do you do adjustment on the prices based on the differences from the subject property?
Yes, you can do that. Yeah. Yeah, I did that when I started working on it. I changed the square footage, I changed the bedrooms, I did that. You can actually, you can add a suggested price and you can say, hey, none of these homes had a swimming pool in the back, so that's another 10,000, or whatever feature they have. Like if you have an ADU, you really have to figure out the total square footage, and that's a whole different thing. One thing that's going on right now is they're putting ADUs all over Tacoma. They're putting them all over everywhere, and they're also condominiumized in neighborhoods to where, like this, in all of Tacoma, by the end of the year, you can actually build a like a duplex condo in your backyard if you have an alley access, and you can sell the condos but keep the land, and you can have a fee, a HOA, like a condo fee. It's crazy. So there's really a lot of good income opportunities nowadays with, they're trying to handle the housing need. So you're putting them in people's backyards. So, Angelina?
Yeah, I have questions that the CMA, use the cloud CMA, probably good thing. But if you go to the listing and you compete with another agent, how would you persuade the seller? If you come correctly, sometime you might be lower, and how you persuade the seller. That's what I'm thinking. If you go compete with them.
I think the first thing I usually do when I go before I even talk about price, I ask the seller what they think the price is, what they think it's worth. And that's when I start getting the comments about what Zillow says, but you have to sell the fact that, even if you're new, you have the company is the fourth largest real estate company in the state, and the number one independent in the state, and 1,200 brokers, and treat it like a team. Our team has sold hundreds of homes in this area. I mean, even if you haven't. But then it all comes down to commissions too after a while. I've seen brokers get 7% on listing commissions, but they built a menu. What they were providing at that price, they provide full staging and everything. I mean, it comes down to money and what they think they're going to get for the house.
Mm.
And every time you have something, I encourage the brokers to call me or one of the other branch managers and get some ideas, because it is very competitive out there. Definitely. I mean, I used to see 3% on each side everywhere, and now I see 2.5 as an average. So,
Mm.
yeah.
How about staging? You recommend them too?
Yes. And okay, so I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to, like, even this place here, I mean, they didn't want to stage the house fully. So what I did is what I call a simple stage. And in the pictures, I've got artificial plant in the corner. I've got a lamp. I've got things out here. I've got a tray in the kitchen with coffee mugs and a French press. I've got towels hanging on all the towel bars. I've got little plants here and there. And believe me, in the pictures, it makes all the difference in the world to have some color, even if it's not full furniture. On this one here, there's a little bistro table in the kitchen with 2 chairs. I mean, it's just little stuff that adds color to it. But I believe staging is very important. Yeah. And if it's someone else's home and it's already furnished, well, then it's just a matter of making sure it's clean and the countertops are clean and stuff's in the right position. But my last 2 listings were, one was 1,400 square feet, one was 11, and I did a simple stage on both.
Okay.
So just to show colors everywhere, and maybe a picture here and there, or a mirror, or a lamp or something. So, and then one thing I don't like this house here, there's a lamp in the corner of the middle picture right here, and it's an LED bulb, so it doesn't take much to run. I asked the seller to leave it on all the time because it gets dark early around here, and the worst thing you can do is have a buyer, the buyer broker, to have their client walk into a dark house. You want some brightness, and open up the blinds, and give it some oomph. But staging is important.
How much does staging cost, and can you refer some staging services?
We actually have several brokers at Skyline that do staging too. I mean, I did my last 2 myself. It was simple staging, but this is the first time. Normally I paid other brokers like $500 to do a simple. I paid one $1,500 to do a whole house, but I think she gave me a good deal on it. But I've seen, on average, I've seen some staging run $4,000. So yeah, I think your best option there is just post out on the Skyline Broker Facebook site that you're looking for staging, and there's probably going to be a half a dozen Skyline brokers that actually chime in and say they do staging. Some of them sell it as their package. My top broker for Puyallup last year in volume, that's one of her services. She's got a garage full of stuff, and her partner go out and stage every home that they list. So.
Number, a redelivery number, or a service request.
Just can I ask a question?
If you're calling from a smartphone, it might be easier to use our mobile feature where you can see and enter your number. Would you like to use the mobile feature? Yes or no?
Karen Mitchell, thanks. Go ahead, Lena, or Lana.
Yeah, I was gonna ask back to the pricing, like estimating the price, the value of the house when you meet with the seller. So when you enter the address of the property in Realist in WMLS, there is a, like the estimated
Market value?
value. So is it accurate? Can we go off that or?
No,
No,
no, that's going off. I don't know what that is. It's actually, it's kind of, it seems like it's going off a, assessed value plus.
Okay,
Cause it's like, if you notice assessed value is always a hair lower. They might be taking the, assessed value that the county assessor has and adding like a little percent at, estimated lift on it.
so you would go off more of the CMA as you showed,
Yes.
or?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Zillow?
Actually, I always, like the CMA shows with Zillow estimates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but most of the time your clients are going to say, hey, what Zillow says. And
Mm.
Zillow seems to be getting a lot more accurate, but sometimes I'll take a sheet from Zillow and I'll take a sheet from Redfin
Yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
show what they estimate. But I'm looking at those ahead of time, that's for sure.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
remember the Zillows and Redfins, they don't know what's inside the house, what's been
Exactly.
updated. They don't know if it backs up to a garbage dump or, a really nice neighborhood. So
Yeah.
no drive-bys there. So you always want to go by your own CMA.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi
For
there.
the pictures, do you have any picture service company or you done the?
Well, personally, I use Cusco Photography, Kusko. Because Cusco has been, they shot they do an excellent job, and they actually, they helped us on events. They've done free pro shots in our offices this year. They're gonna do it this year, and they did it last year. I mean, they do a good job, but they also, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's the photo guy down here. There's people up north. I mean,
We have a vendor list, Bella, that we can send out as well.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So those kind of individual things, we can.
You really have to think about what you're listing. If you list up a nice home in a nice neighborhood, get great photos, and yeah, you're ending up paying $400 or $600 or more sometimes. If you're doing a manufactured home in a park or maybe a cheap home, you might want to call Estate Imaging. I mean, Estate Imaging does a complete photo shoot for like $170. But also a lot of the other ones like Cusco and the photo guy, they fly a drone too. And if you have a lake nearby or parks or, just a green area, people like to see the aerial views too. So, yeah.
Oh, I have another question.
Go ahead.
So, Jeff, you mentioned that you bring a package to your listing appointment to talk to your seller. So, within that package, could you send out email of what you bring to the appointment after the meeting?
What I bring?
Yeah, you mentioned that you bring a package like the utility
Well,
stuff.
I mean, it's very simple. It's the package is it's the all the listing paperwork. But
Mhm.
I can do that. I can do that.
Okay.
I'll just do it. I'm just writing a note for myself.
Is there any guideline on how to do price adjustment when you do CMA? Like this home has an extra bedroom, then how much would that account for, etc.?
Ross?
I think that's going to be more on what an appraiser is going to appraise it for. If there's an additional bedroom you're comparing to, but one's got one more bedroom.
Well, another thing too is, if you look at the average, if you go to all the CMAs, you're gonna see a price per square foot on that house. So if they got if it's $300 a square foot and they've got an extra 200 square feet, you can add that way too, but that's still a rough estimate. I mean, you figure an extra bedroom's usually worth another 10,000, and an add-on a garage can be up to like 30,000, sometimes up to 100, depending on what it is. So
Quite
yeah.
a few variables.
You're trying to get, using your comps, you're getting as close as you can for square footage already. So that's why you're doing your CMA. What screen are you looking at, Ross?
You got your flyer up there.
Okay. I wish it would just share. Anyway, now the listing process,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
All right. So that's one thing we do about pricing the home is, you know, accurate pricing is crucial. And the worst thing you can do is over price a listing, because then you have to do price reductions to get it moving. And it's best to try to get a good price to start with. Sometimes sellers are, you know, they really want that extra thing. And so sometimes, a lot of times people will write the listing agreement with an agreement with the sellers that after 2 weeks, they'll drop this much, and the next 2 weeks they'll do another one. And then let the seller give the number first. I always ask them what they think it's worth. Price it to sell, not sit. Give a range, an average range. And then like I said, you're gonna deal with that thing but Zillow, but we already talked about that. And then also you look at the comps. I mean, the house is new, old, size, condition. I mean, these homes right here. I mean, at one point, the one on top probably looked like the one on the bottom, but those aren't the same home. That top is in what I would call an investor special and a lot different price. They comparison shop. I also include sometimes in my comps expired and canceled listings, because most of the time they didn't sell because they were overpriced, and you can actually point them out that it's, you know, yeah, that one was high, but look, it's sat for 180 days and did not sell anyway.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I have a kind of interesting property that I'm gonna be listing.
Okay.
Who could I talk to just make sure that my CMA is okay?
Which office are you in?
What?
Which office are you in?
Oh, Bellevue.
Okay. Well, I mean, Melissa's on the line here, and so
Oh.
is Cindy, and they are Bellevue branch managers. Well, Melissa's in Bellevue sometimes, in Kent other times, but and then Eric Johnson is our DB. He's up there too, but I would encourage calling one of the branch managers.
Okay.
Like I'm even willing to help, and Ross is willing to help. We all help each other. It doesn't matter what office you're in. If you can't get a hold of someone, you can go down the line and call someone else. I help people do CMAs all the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hey Jeff, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I actually I create these reports at CMS for single families, but I'm trying to actually I'm working on this report for a condominium unit in Kirkland. The problem is that in the Northwest MLS, I cannot find any comparable properties. I looked even for the last 1 year, and it didn't bring anything up.
What kind of property is it?
It's a condo.
Okay.
So I was wondering if it's like we have different ways that we can look at the condos, compare that with other condos. Is there
Oh,
any
you can-
trick to it?
When you're at the bottom of your matrix search, you got to select condo.
I did select condo, but it didn't bring anything. And I just noticed actually that the condo that I'm going to list, it was listed last year, but it got canceled. That's the only property that's bringing it. I mean, the same
What
condo
city-
I'm looking
What
for.
city is this in?
Kirkland.
Kirkland?
Yep.
Does it have a lake view?
Does it have what?
A lake view?
A link view?
A lake, water, lake view.
Lake.
Nope. But actually, yes, it does. Yep.
Okay. I maybe talk to one of your branch managers there, and we can help out. I think it'd
Okay.
be too long to explain right now. We'd have to get into it and see what we can help you with.
Yeah, because I mean, we can
Take-
always get
take
on a
enough
Zoom
time
call with.
here on the class. I think anything like that, go ahead and reach out to one of us. Like Jeff said, we'll help you out.
Yeah, and we
Okay,
can get
thank
on
you.
a Zoom call And you could share your screen and we can walk you through it. That way you learn at the same time.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep. Anyway, the stuff to bring to your appointment, about Cloud CMA, of course, the home book. You can use past listing samples, and if you haven't done a lot of sales, that's when I talked about doing, a team. You might pull up all of the Skyline sold properties in that area within the last year and say your team sold, 15 homes within the, 1 mile radius of here. So don't ever think that you're alone, and so set yourself apart from others, passive marketing versus active. There is so many ways to get this listing out. I mean, you've got, oh boy, you got Instagram, you got X, you got Facebook groups galore. I sent a listing out the other day, and between Washington State Real Estate Brokers and Washington State Real Estate and another one, it was posted into groups that consisted of 85,000 people. So there's just a lot of different groups out there. And then you've also got all of the different Facebook groups for buy, sell, trade, Seattle, buy, sell, trade, Bonnie Lake, Submarine, and Claw. I mean, I'd be happy to coach anybody through that if they wanted to call me, because exposure is number one, definitely. And just keep doing it like at least once a week, and then post it up again that says, hey, open house this weekend, still available, don't miss out. Just put it in front of people all the time. That's the best way to sell it. And then we went through Cloud CMA, and then we went through congrats, what's next, and listing agreement signed, order your signs, we talked about that, flyers, we talked about that, order signposts, we talked about that, home book, prepare your stations. I still put hand sanitizer on all the countertop and the stuff. Go to your photography, staging, we discussed that, title, pre-listing paperwork, and then your super access. So that's kind of a recap of everything we discussed. So I believe the rest is yours, Ross.
Right, yeah, that's right, it is. So why don't you log out, Jeff? Okay.
I just did.
You just did, that's good.
I'm not logging out, I'm staying on.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
because I've got a book here, I'm gonna grade you, so.
Okay,
Melissa asked me to, so.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do just my portion here, guys. And from the feedback I've gotten before when we did these listing classes is, gosh, we know you guys got these MLS forums, and it kind of takes a while to get it all down, what they're about, and all these blanks, what do they mean? So we thought it would be a good idea if I shared what a listing packet, so to speak, looks like with the forms filled out. And so this one happens to be one of mine, and I will email this to all of you so you can, again, use it as a reference. And as a reminder, if you have not RSVP'd to this class, I can't send it to you unless you do. So if you will RSVP to Susan, S-U-S-A-N, Susan at skylineproperties.com, then I can send this to you. I could just give you a quick rundown of who I do have is Julia Vlasenko, Jacqueline Kwan, Marina Early, Bella Chi, BHA, Nancy Sanchez, Courtney Jackson, Jenny Millars, Siva Me, and Angelina Lim. So if you're not on that list, please send an email to Susan. Just let her know, hey, I attended the listing class. You'll get credit for it that you attended, and then we can send you this information. So this client of mine is actually a neighbor. Now, not, a real close neighbor that I had, we chat at the mailbox or, talk about each other's lawn or what have you, but not certainly somebody that comes over and has drinks and watches sports with me all the time. But he had approached me and said that him and his wife were getting a divorce, and he was going to take the end of selling the house. It's actually in a living trust. But he was in the house, cleaned it all out, and he wanted me to list it for him. And a couple years prior to that, he had given me his son as a lead to buy a condominium, and I sold the condominium to him. So, you know, kind of owed him a little bit of favor here. So I just wanted to show this is real world. One thing I did do is because this sale, he gave me permission to use it for training. And it was written before some of the forms changed. So I've transferred this onto the updated form so you guys could see that. So that's kind of what that's all about. This is a residential home. Just remember, other listing paperwork, like for condominiums, can be a little bit different for inputting. The same with vacant land, multifamily, commercial, etc. there. And also for a non-listed property, because you can sell a non-listed property, you can represent a seller. In that scenario, you should talk to a branch manager. We'll help you through it. But there's going to be a different form that you fill in for the information after the property sells. And that's it's called the ULS, meaning unlisted Form 1. And all you have to do is send that in to the MLS. The seller does not need to sign that. And you just provide a primary picture of the home from the front, send it to the MLS so they can keep it for all their data records. So I'm starting off here with a residential home. So first thing we do is get a agency disclosure form. Now we're going to take it here from that.
Ross, we got a hand raise.
Oh, already. Okay. All I see is D phone.
Yeah.
Oh, that was from earlier. Sorry.
Oh, okay. We'll keep
Okay.
motoring through. We'll keep motoring through, D. Anyway, okay, so this is just representation. Who do we represent? So I'm going to represent the seller. I sign it here and the sellers sign it below. And it does say in here that we're going to provide you with this real estate brokerage in Washington. So this is kind of an introduction to what our duties are as brokers to either a buyer or a seller. And as far as our representation, what our liabilities are, this is on the MLS. It's actually the first forms that you find on the express forms there. It's called the P1 for pamphlet 1. It's 4 pages long, so you want to hand this over to your seller. I always like to see them in person. I know some of you can do things online now and electronic signatures and all that stuff, but obviously for me, this is really easy when he's just a couple of doors down from me. But it's always good to meet these folks in person, and this is certainly something that you want to bring out and show to them right off the bat. So that's 4 pages. Again, it's on the MLS. And then when we get to, after I see the property with him, or I at least get word that he wants me to look into selling it for him, is I go on to the MLS and I go to the tab that says Realist. And I think earlier in our training here, I heard somebody talk about Realist. And for those of you that don't know, Realist is kind of like a public records scenario that's on the MLS. And so what I want to do is I want to go and look at the property, kind of get an idea of square footage, bedrooms, what it sold for the last time it sold. And you can see up on the top there, it sold in 2005 for $362,500. Like I said, the square footages, it's got assessment and taxes. It's got yearly taxes on it, characteristics of the home. You know, you can find this on also, a Zillow. Even if you're going to go into Transaction Desk, we'll pull up some of this information. This is just something I like to do kind of in the preliminary stages. Another person earlier here in the training asked about, how accurate are the real AVMs that are on the MLS? And I still shake my head and say not very accurate. This one came up with an average of 971.9, and I sold this for 1.5 million. So just kind of keep that as a grain of salt. So this has got all the information, even mortgage history, that type of thing. You probably can't see it. This is a copy here, but on this listing information where I have my arrow here from before, it's got the old MLS number. And so if you click, it's blue. So if you clicked on that, it would bring up the old MLS and you can kind of read through everything that was from the prior selling agent. So I'm going to go down. It's got a little map here with some information on the lot. So this, and I'm sorry, it's not the best copy, but here it is. So this was the listing that was from before in 2005, sold looks like June 6th. And what I like to do when I pull this up is I still look at all the information on here, but I look at what compensation was paid to the buyer's broker. So this was 3%. And remember, I'm going to give this neighbor a deal here because he brought me his son. He's just came out, and I really didn't have to work too hard for this listing, and it's up over $1 million. So hey, so one of the good things was hey, it was 3% to the buyer's broker before. I'm going to do better than that for you. So, and I like to read the marketing remarks because sometimes I get a little bit of a brain freeze what I'm going to write, what my remarks are. Gorgeous 4-bedroom, three bath. Boasts a beautiful new kitchen, da, da, da. So I kind of like to read through here to see how it gets started so I can get some ideas or a light bulb goes off in my head how to start writing the marketing
Hey,
remarks.
that's a good time for the ChatGPT AI.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
A lot of
Very
people are
good.
using that nowadays. So.
Good for you. Chat GPT, all on AI now. Broker remarks are in here. So I've just got, I just look through it is what I'm doing here to show you what that's like. But this is where the most labor intensive portion comes on your behalf. So we're pretending here just because I'm telling you, this is a sample of what I did. So him and I chatted. I know the home, but we went all through the house. We went through the yard. He asked me about, a couple of things that he could DIY do, maybe some painting, a little bit of cleanup and stuff like that. But he had everything out. It was pretty close just to being vacant, although he was still living in just one of the bedrooms there, sleeping on a cot. So it really wasn't much more for me to do here. So as far as the paperwork, the residential listing input form sheet is 5 pages long. So this is going to take you a little bit of time to do. And this, when you fill it all out and you have them sign it, you're also going to be inputting this into the computer for your listing on the MLS. So we just went ahead here. We started to fill it out. If you see these little black bullets on here that have it's going to be a blank space above you, that means that these items need to be filled in order for it to take the listing on the computer. So you have to make sure that you fill out that space if you see a black dot. Okay, so that's there for a reason. So we went ahead and filled out the address in here where the area is, 610. If you have any questions where areas are, they have that in the MLS because the whole area of the Puget Sound region is broken down into areas. And then what we were going to list the price at, him and I sat down and we chatted about it. He wanted 1.1 for the listing. That came out pretty good for what I saw from my CMA that I did. We listed it in July 2024. I went ahead for the expiration date for the listing to go from July all the way till the end of the year. So that's why it says 12/31. The tax ID number that I put into there. And we did have a preliminary title report. If you see these little arrows here that are on the computer, these are just drop downs. This is a copy, so I can't click on it now and show you the drop down, but it's just like yes or no, or it's just giving you, a couple of different samples that you can use to fill in that blank. And you just click the arrow. Okay, I put in the lot number, the plat division name, Pioneer Hills. And then on this line where you see where it says yes all the way across from left to right, and the bullets start with prohibit blogging, these are already answered yes on the MLS for you. And that's because probably 95% of the time, those are going to be yes on there. You can change them from a yes to a no. I think in my whole experience here of being a listing broker. The only one I've changed maybe to no is this allow automated valuation. And that's where you're given permission for like the Zillows and Redfins. You could put no up there and it wouldn't show up on their listing of the home where they give their Zestimate, so to speak. So you just use that to whatever is advantageous. If they're showing it a very high price, say if this one they're Zillow showing it for 1.3 million, I'm going to leave that as yes because we're going to sell it for 1.1. If it was the other way around, then I'd take it off and put no in there. So do whatever benefits you the most. The percentage of commission to the buyer broker is 2.5 here, and we put that as percent. The tail provision, 90 days. Tail provision is basically if it's 90 days after your listing either expires or the seller fires you, and you had a buyer that you had the procurement of the buyer, and that buyer ended up buying this home, you could get a commission from the seller. How would that happen? I think the ones that I see the most here is when I've got a listing going, a potential buyer drives by and they're not working with a broker and they see my cell phone number on the sign and they call me and they ask me if I could show them the home. And of course I tell them yes. And if I go through and I show it to them and they're really interested in it, that's my buyer. And I could get out my Form 41 and have them sign that. And if something failed down the road and they came back with a different agent, bought that house, I could end up getting the commission. Doesn't always happen though, but it's a possibility. Okay, so that's tail provision. The year that the house was built, 1980, and the effective year that it was built, also 1980. The reason they have that in there is there's a lot of older homes, over 100 years old, for example, Queen Anne, where, it might have been built in 1895, but back in, the year 2010, the owner went and stripped down that house all the way down to the studs and completely rebuilt it into a beautiful contemporary home. Well, it's going to be all permitted then under a different effective year bill. So this is pretty easy. It's 1980 and it stayed the same, but you could run into that in some scenarios. Okay. Finished square footage, 2184. The lot square footage, you got that from public records on both of those. And then where it says virtual tour here, 1, 2, or 3, this is your photographer. If you want to have, you and your seller want to have a virtual tour done of the home, that's where you can go in. It's like a little 3D look of the property and you just click on the aerials. You can go through the front door. You go to the left, it's the living room. You go to the right, you can go down a hallway, go into the kitchen, go upstairs, follow the arrows. That's what a virtual tour is. I'm sure you've seen those. So a photographer, if you told them that's what you wanted, it is extra to pay for that. I know my photographer is like $180 to do one. They can put one of those together for you. So they'll send you all the photos, the regular photos that they took, and then they'll provide a link to the virtual tour. And what you can just do is copy the link and then just put it in the space there. And then it will show up with an icon on your listing. Okay. This is one of the few forms that you also initial as a broker, initial and date there too. So besides the seller, that's going to be you on there as well. So that's page 1. Page 2, you guys can just read through this, but additional tax IDs. So, for this home, it's just that property, right? But let's say if it was more out in a rural area and it was on an acre and the owner of the house also owned a little vacant land strip right next to their property, it would have a different tax ID on that strip of vacant land. So if you wanted to sell it all together, you can add that other tax ID in here and sell it as one. So that's, there's several of these on here. So something you can add into there. It's pretty easy to do. If you have any questions about it, you can talk to one of the branch managers if you run into that. The next is possession. A lot of times you're going to see them on closing, but you can see there's some other choices for you. But you're just going to go ahead and mark the box. Potential terms for financing here. We just wanted a cash out or conventional loan. Didn't want to do the FHA government route. And then they're showing information. So on all the listings, I suggest you have them by appointment, even if it's vacant or not. So you have an idea of who's coming into that home and can keep track of that. Does have an MLS key box on it. And I've also marked on here to use showing time. So showing time is a platform that you can use on your listings that basically it's a calendar that the potential buyer brokers can request to show the home on a certain day at a certain time. And so you can get that request either to come through like a phone call to you or a text or an email or a combination of 2 or 3 different ways. And then you have to give confirmation to them whether you allow them to show them at that time. There's some practicing that we can do on this as well. Again, you can talk to your branch manager. Usually when you do your showing time after you input the listing and you end up going live, that will show up probably like 15 or 20 minutes afterwards, and you can set up the showing time the way that you want it to. Okay, now you might have where the home is occupied and you know, the people are still living in the home. Yeah, you want an appointment there, but you might want to keep that, you know, talk with your seller, but they might want to have certain times in the day where they're willing to let the broker show it and other times that they won't. So that's going to be up to you to make sure that you get that correct. Okay, no rental scenarios here. There's no senior exemption on the taxes. Senior exemption could be where it's a senior citizen. I think my mother-in-law, who's 83, something like that. She lives in my basement now. But she, on her home or condominium that we sold not too long ago, you know, she went from paying, I think, over $3,000 for that per year down to like 600 and something. So government will give you a break on that. But here, that was not the scenario. And first right of refusal, no on that too. First right of refusal can be a number of things. It doesn't happen too often, but what are things that can happen on that? It could be, I know in some situations where a landlord and a tenant, for example, and the landlord had told the tenant, you know, hey, if you ever wanted to buy this place, you've been a tenant of mine for 10 years. We have a great rapport, a great relationship. The tenant told them, hey, if you are willing to sell this place, I'd like to have first shot of it. They wrote up some type of little contract or what have you, their agreement. That could be a first right of refusal as well. Tax year 2024, $8,394. We did provide the seller disclosure form, and that is for a residential property. Now, Form 17 is another word for that. So the seller disclosure statements can also be different than this residential one. There's a commercial Form 17 that can be for commercial and vacant land properties. Yeah, and then there's a Form 17 waiver. So if it is a waiver, we'd kind of like to know about it as branch managers. There is a seller disclosure waiver that we have through Skyline that we'd still like to have initialed and signed by the buyer and seller. The most, probably 90% of the time, the description there where you'd have a waiver would be like an estate sale where, you know, for example, parents have passed. It was owned by the parents, the home, and the children have gotten the home now. They're the heirs of it, and but they don't know much about the house, so they couldn't really tell you all of the information that they know about the house. So therefore, it could be waived. And in that case, you know, that's something that you really maybe want to think about. Definitely having the home inspected. And if it's one of these scenarios where there's multiple offers in that, I'm still gonna suggest that you have the home inspected. But it's up to you and your buyer in that scenario. This is not a common interest community. Common interest communities you see mainly on condominium complexes through their ownership. Common interest community could be where there's other amenities on the property. Maybe it's got a little park, it's got tennis courts, swimming pool, and all of the ownership that's owned by all of the folks that are in that condominium complex. Obviously, this is just a residential with no HOA, which, speaking about HOA, that would be the next segment down here. So we're going to put no in there. Obviously, if there was an HOA, you'd put in whatever goes into the information there, what the dues are monthly and what they include. And then also the name of a contact, maybe a president of the association or a property management firm and their contact information. And then we go down to the schools. This is in the North Shore School District. I know the three schools very well since I live in that neighborhood. They would do Woodinville High School, Leota Junior High, and Wooden Elementary. And if for any reason you're not quite sure, you can always put in buyer to verify. There is a slot that you can click on, says buyer to verify. You know, you want to put in what school district it is. That's pretty easy to find out. But in the three individual schools, which sometimes during the summertime, they can change their boundaries. And so the easiest way to, you know, not have the liability on that is just to put in buyer to verify. Okay, so the owner still owns it. They did not want to disclose their phone number and the phone to show. They didn't need to call. They could just use showing time for me, which we did do. And you do need to put in the owner's city where they live, and we put in the first name, the husband, Emil. And you can see again, we're going to be filling in our initials on the bottom. You have to make sure those are all filled in. Okay, this is got, you know, just choices to make. Read the top and mark the boxes which apply. So the lot, you know, here we have garden space. It's a level lot. It's wooded. Does it have a view? Well, it's got a territorial view. There's not a mountain or lake view or anything like that. It's not waterfront. So just mark down what applies. You and the seller will know that. So you just go all the way across here and put in your check marks. If they're multiple, you just go ahead and put those in. Is this on sewer or is it on septic? This is sewers connected, which is nice. And so I checked the box there. If it happened to be on septic, you'd mark the box there, and then there'll be some more questions for you on the Form 17 regarding the septic tank. It has a daylight basement, but it's also listed as a split entry home. So I marked the box here because it's all finished off. There is a garage, a 2-car garage. So I put, you know, 2 cars here, garage attached. It's not new construction. I put in the style code. So this little arrow down, when you click on that, it'll give you all the different home styles, like a, you know, 1-story rambler, a 1-story with a daylight rambler, a 3-story, a townhouse, you know, all of those choices for you, which you can put in there. Not enough manufactured home. If this was a manufactured home, there would be an addendum that would be going in with this. You can always talk to one of us branch managers. We could help you with that the first time around. The exterior of the home is wood, the foundation is a slab, and the roof is metal, and they last a long time. This is important to some of the folks, which is fine if you know the answer to that. It's not bulleted, but the home faces west. So we just put that in on the box there. The building information, it was built on the lot. Accessibility features, like for handicapped folks, didn't have any in the home. And be careful when you do fill these out. I know some of the brokers here in my office have checked these, and because it looked like the doorway, you know, a wheelchair could go through, and oh, there's bars on the shower, you know, in the bathroom that you could hold on to. But it's got to be approved for accessibility. So what would happen is if you mark those boxes and it was not, the MLS will come back at you and they'll want proof of the accessibility features. So that's the scenario there. Okay, now we go on to page 4 here. We're getting there. The same would hold through with green certifications. Those are, newer homes that have been under, all green. There's a certificate that comes with this. So if you do not have that, do not fill out the top part here. Ask about fireplaces, interior features, kitchens, bath off the primary, double pane windows, dining room, etc. You're just going to mark these boxes again of whatever applies there, because they'll go into the listing. Energy source, they have natural gas there. They also have one little electric wall heater that used to be in a den that they turned into a bedroom. But the gas is forced air and no AC. So that's what cooling's for, is you're going to put in for air conditioning. So they did change some of the floor covering since it was sold last time. So again, I'm just marking boxes of what I see there. Talk to the seller about it. So the ceramic tile and laminate and marble in the kitchen, the appliances that stay. This is pretty important. So these are the appliances that the seller's going to leave for the new buyer here. So just keep in mind, when a buyer, they can offer other appliances that could be in the home that are not listed on here. Let's just say that there was a trash compactor that they saw on here, and they put in the offer, that's what they wanted, and the seller agrees to it. Well, you've given them the dishwasher then. So you got to check your purchase and sale offer compared to what you put into the listing here. So again, I'm just marking the boxes that applied there. It was not staged, no community features, and the water source is public. So this is both City of Bothell, even though this is really part of Woodinville. There's just a little peninsula that comes off from the City of Bothell that goes into Woodinville, and that's where we happen to live. My back fence divides the two cities. But the City of Bothell has water and sewer that they pay to. Puget Sound Energy handles power and natural gas, and cable and internet is Comcast there. Public transit nearby. Okay. I got to the last page, page 5. So here you're going to mark in where the bedrooms are. This is all going to be in the computer. When you do this, it'll keep track of the bedrooms and it'll show it on the preliminary listing that you have. And that's where you're going to put in your marketing remarks here and your broker remarks. So your broker remarks, you just read what I put in here, that, please use showing time, give them a 1-hour notice. Please text the listing agent, that's me, after they're done showing. So then, because he'd go on a walk, throughout the neighborhood, and then, you get a text, say, okay, we're done showing, so he'd come back home. That's just a courtesy thing to do. I gave my phone number on here, who I'm using for title and escrow, WFG, and the name of the escrow closer, which is Kim Potter. I gave him a little bit more information on downstairs, a room that was framed in, and the current owner had taken out the shelves. These are just good little tidbits to tell to the buyer's agent, because the more you know on a listing that you put out, the better. So both TVs stay. That's a good thing to know. And like I said, the seller had a minimum of 24 hours for response time. Still put in the driving directions from a main route. You can put in GPS now. I still like to put in the full address, and I think the MLS likes to see that as well. Okay, so that is the listing input. So that's going to take some of your time, because this, again, needs to be signed. And this will not go to the MLS. This will actually be turned into Skyline, into our SkySlope platform. What the MLS is going to have is what you type off of this that goes into the computer. And that's why you need to take that class if you haven't taken it already. Okay. And then there's our exclusive sale and listing agreement, better known as a Form 1A. So you put in the seller's name, the firm's name, Skyline Properties, the address of the property, and the terms. So this is, again, going to the end of the year of 2024. The agency, we had that filled out, the Form 42, along with the pamphlet. On number 4, we do not do dual agency here at Skyline. It's very tough to get our insurance company to handle dual agency. So we just don't do it here. So you don't really need to get seller's initials, or you can just put a cross through that. And then down below on number 5, you put in the list date, which we had as July 14th. It's got some information on the fair housing. And then we come to compensation, which is pretty important here. So the little break that I gave to him, such a good client of mine, is I did the listing for 1.5%. So out of 1.1 million is over $15,000 that I got for a very easy deal here. And I always just put lines if it's nothing else, because it can be a dollar amount as well, other than a percentage of the commission of the sales price. Okay. And then what do we pay to the buyer broker? It's 2.5%. That's what we came up with. I told the seller, if you want to get the best price, you pay the buyer broker accordingly. So 2.5% is what we put in there. And, you know, they can list for actually 0. That's totally fine. You're going to see it pretty rarely, but that can be any number there. So dual agency, there's zeros on that, because like I said, we do not do that. There's some other, there's other choices here. The buyer can request compensation in an offer. So the seller could put that into its buyer broker remarks, that they can, if they had no listing percentage in there, say, for example, then they want the buyer in their offer to include how much that the buyer broker commission should be, compensation should be. And then there can be no offer of compensation, like I mentioned before, pretty rare, but it is out there. And then the expiration time, 180 days after the listings expired, where you could get a portion of the commission if you did sell to a procured buyer that you had that ends up getting a mutual accepted deal on the home. Talk to one of us managers too. If you come to that scenario, we can help you through that. Okay. And then we always want you to read all the forms. I'm not going to read all these, but basically this is just talking about access. So the seller's aware that you're going to put on a key box here. Property access to non-brokers. So, the MLS, our Northwest Multiple Listings, we're the largest in the state by far, but there are other MLSs in the state. Some over in Spokane, some down in Southern Washington, Vancouver area, what have you, Yakima, I believe, and a couple of others. And if they have because they could sell to anybody in the state of Washington, but they can't get into our lock boxes. And so we got to have the seller authorize that they can see the home and they can write offers on the home. And of course, with me on this one, they wanted to see if I would be of help to the other agents to help them access. And of course I will. And I would do it if they weren't just 2 doors down, if they were a long drive from here, because we want to give them as many buyer opportunities as possible. Okay. Property condition, they got to keep the listing in good condition while it's on the market. Seller warranties and representations, seller warrants that the seller has the right to sell the property on the terms herein. I just give them this, have them read through it, maybe hit on some of the important parts. Distressed homes that are in a short sale scenario where, they're underwater in the home. They may have to do this on a short sale addendum. Those aren't always fun to do, but it can happen. And then it talks about closing. And, another thing too, that homes can happen here, where I've sold a lot to elderly people and they've collected things over the decades. And you just want to make sure that the home is cleaned out of all clutter. It's almost like hoarding, and get everything out of there. You want it to look good, and make sure it's freshened up. And so a lot of times I've worked on it myself, where I've, even hired a moving truck to come and take all the garbage out. But obviously you want your listing to look real good. Okay. Talks about damages in the event of buyer's breach and attorney's fees, which usually the losing party will be paying for the attorney's fees if there was a lawsuit, which I hope there never is. Okay. So we're all signing off on that. So this is how the listing looked when I was all finished on here. And you could see that it sold in one day. And we got 50,000 more from it. It was a great buyer, already approved through their bank, through the underwriter. So that worked out really well. Again, this is just a copy, guys, but this is all that inputting and all that. This is what we ended up with here. And yeah, that was all done, and that was a really good sale there. Okay. I left this in here because this was also what's called a double list. And so a double list can mean it could be listed in two categories on the MLS. So I talked about areas in our area 610, which borders kind of Bothell, Woodinville to Kirkland on the east side of Interstate 405. We're within a half a mile of area 600. So that's a lot. Kirkland, part of Redmond. You can get so many more eyes on this listing if you listed it under two areas. So I put it under 610 and 600. You do have to pay $50 in order for this to transpire. And that's to the MLS, and the MLS has to approve it first.
Do you know the distance qualification on that?
From here, I thought it was a half a mile, as I recall.
Okay, I think that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Has it changed since then? I'm not 100% sure, Jeff, but you always call and ask. That's what the
Yeah.
help desk is for. Another way you can use the double listing, and you guys have probably seen these too, is I'll just give you an example. You see these townhomes that are detached. So they're kind of side by side, but there's, there's room in between them, not a lot, but some. And you'll go, okay, those are townhomes, residential. Well, they may not be. They may be condominiums. So what you want to do on your preliminary title report that you get from your title company, if anywhere in there that it mentions condominium, those were actually by the developer put into that development as a condominium. So, and the reverse can happen too, where it looks like condominium, and they can be residential. So you just want to find out about that. But what's nice is you can, if you do the double listing, it will list those as both residential and condominium on the listing. But of course, the purchase and sale agreement, in a scenario that I just gave to you as example, would be on the condominium purchase and sale agreement. Okay, so put in a double list here, $50, but boy, did I get the action on it. So it was well worth it. Okay. And then this, I just showed the front page of the preliminary title report, because this one again was quite a few pages here that we got from WFG. And there was that Exhibit A legal description that's got to be, you have to have on a purchase and sale to make it valid. So I listed this onto the supplement pages, and supplement pages would just be the little notebook icon that you see on listings, and that's where you can put in like the legal description, the Form 17, our FERPTA form, which I'll talk about, any helpful other items that you can load onto there. Maybe if like you had, like a septic tank and it was passed by the county for inspection, you could load that up there, for example, as well. So anyway, I load these on there because, again, I want to put as much information on my listing as I can. And FERPTA, this is for if it's for basically it's taxation for the seller. If they are a non-resident foreigner here, there is a tax that needs to be paid on it. Escrow will handle that, but the buyer needs to know about that, because if it doesn't get paid by the seller, the buyer could end up paying for that. So you want to make sure that the buyer does see this, and if that is the case, it was not in my example here, but if it was, they'd have to sign down at the bottom down there, and they're okay with it. So that's what that's for. This is the utilities. We just preloaded these. So we listed the utilities here, where they pay. Puget Sound Energy, City of Bothell, having them initial that. And then here comes our seller disclosure statement. It's 6 pages long, so this is going to take the most amount of time for your seller. So I'm sitting down at the kitchen table. I have to let them know I cannot fill this in for them. They have to fill it out, but I can help guide them on what the question means. Okay. And of course, a lot of times they do need help on that kind of stuff. They don't know about easements and, you know, many of these other questions here, but they do have to fill them out. But thank goodness, you know, there's multiple choice, because the answer is either yes, no, they don't know, or NA stands for not applicable. Not applicable could be like on this home, it's hooked up to public sewer, and they're going to ask questions about the septic tank. Well, there isn't a septic tank. So then they just mark the box NA. It's not applicable. It's not on septic here. But it's pretty long. So they're going to fill these all out. What I do is just make sure that they filled out all the boxes. And then I kind of look out over everything here. But, you know, I just have them initial down at the bottom, because I want the buyer's agent to know what the house is all about here as well before they even come out and see it.
I have a quick question on that one.
Sure.
So if you meet with the client and you tell them, hey, you know, it's good to do pre-inspection, blah, 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 and they do the pre-inspection either before or after the seller disclosure, and then they find out that something was up, do they have to change the seller disclosure?
Yes.
Do they?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because they know about it now.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, so they got to be honest about everything they know, but that is a good question that comes up, but you don't want to put one that's really not up to date. If they had an inspector come out and they find these, you know, different findings, like you said, then they should update this so that the buyer knows what they're in for or not in for advance. Okay, so.
Hey, sorry, I have a question. I was actually raising my hand a while ago. When you were going through the Form 41, you said that the dual agents is kind of, we are not doing it as Skyline Properties. Is it like a firm rule of Skyline Properties, or it's conditional?
It's a firm rule.
Oh,
That's where the majority of lawsuits come from.
uh-huh.
And a lot of times it's not winnable if it's pretty obvious, because you can, it's, you know, it's really a conflict of interest when you are representing both a buyer and the seller, because, you know, you could tell the buyer, hey, you know, I know they'll take, you know, a lower price, you know, maybe 950,000, you know, I kind of got that, a little bird heard that, you know, from the seller. I mean, those things can happen. So to get errors and omissions insurance, we cannot have representation of both dual. But there are ways that you could you can sell to an unrepresented buyer. So let's say that you got your listing sign out in the front yard and your cell phone number's there, and somebody drives by again and they contact you, and they're not working with a buyer's agent. You can show them the house. You got to let them know that they cannot represent them, but you can write up an offer for them, and you can get paid for that by on your form here about how much commission that would be paid by the seller if you yourself had written up the sale. But you can't represent them both.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Again, if you can always talk to one of us too individually as well, we'd be glad to help you out. Okay. Okay. So we got them. Where do we go? Yeah. Signing down here. And then after this, so I put this onto the listing here. The buyer would have to sign on one of these 3 items here. This isn't a purchase and sale agreement class, but they would have to sign in one of these areas here. Let's see. I'm probably going to take some questions when I'm done here with this. If you have any more questions, because I'm getting there. Okay, so the last one, this has nothing to do with having a seller sign this next form, but this is for it's the listing management report, it's the cover sheet. So when you are going to get a listing and it's signed all the way around, Skyline needs to have a copy of it. All of the forms, again, signed all by the seller and you. And this would be the cover sheet. You could put it on top of all the forms and you can scan it and send it down to the processing department, or you could input it yourself, which we prefer you do into SkySlope. And so you do have to have this form. It's really easy to fill out. It'll only take a couple minutes. It's mainly asking about if you have any ownership in the property. Because if you do, there's another form that we need to have called a hold harmless form. And if it comes to that scenario where you own the property, or your husband owns the property, or it's in the LLC, but one of you is named in the LLC, then we have to have a hold harmless form filled out, and you do need to contact your branch manager first. Well, we want to know about those because we got to make sure that errors and omissions insurance does cover the property that you're going to sell, because it could end up being a nightmare. So we want to avoid that. Okay, so you just fill this out, yes or no boxes on the top, and who the seller is and the listing broker, and that's going to be sent over to into SkySlope, which will put it in there for. So do we have any questions at all regarding any of that now? I know it's a lot to go through, but I did promise I will send this to you. And again, the reason that I'm sending this to you is because there's been many people over the last several years that have said, I'd like to look at a sample of a filled out listing agreement and the addendums. So I thought it'd be a good idea to put this together, and I've gotten good feedback from it, so they can hold on to it. And although this is on my deal here, and certainly they can do things their own way, which I want them to do, but this might, start a light bulb in their head how to fill it out. And so that's the reason that we did that. Okay. For Jeff and I, is there any more questions? Okay, go right ahead. It looks like BH, go right ahead.
Hi. So for Form 22E FIR FIRPTA, how we can determine the seller is a foreign person or not?
My computer doesn't go up very high on volume.
It says how to determine, she also posted in the chat, how to determine the seller is a foreign person or not for the FIRPTA.
Okay, so that I believe would go through the state to see if they're taxed here. I don't know,
that's the
Sydney,
seller. I mean, the seller would also know that.
Seller should know, but if
Yeah.
they don't,
Yeah.
then it would have to be the state that knows, because the IRS, wouldn't be sending them anything on it.
No, my friends, they are on visa. They are all the homeowners. So if they want to sell their property, they are not green card holder or an American citizen. So in this case, how would it work? They are also paying taxes on a yearly basis, but they are all on visas. So in this case, how does that work?
Jeff, did you catch? I'm sorry, on the volume,
Yeah, and I think it's more a question for like escrow and definitely an accountant. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not something that we want to quote here because we're not, I mean,
Yeah, not CPA.
I don't know their status and everything. So
what you could do is email us your question, and we can pass it on to, title and figure out that for you. And then get back to you.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, do we have any others? Again, we're all here to help you out individually. If you've got any questions.
Melissa Helen mentioned in the chat that all the broker portal, in the broker portal, we have all the forms, we have the listing resources, we have listing presentation checklist. and all the paperwork that was asked for your listing presentation.
Yeah, and that's going to be what I'm going to email to them as well. Thanks, Melissa, for mentioning that. That's true. And so I'm going to send you this, everything that we went through here with paperwork, and also anything that has to do with listings, the checklist and other items that we put together too. I will email those all to you folks too. So yeah, those will probably be coming probably tomorrow to you. Well, if you don't have anything else, like I said, you can always talk to us branch managers. We'll be glad to help you out. And I can't wait for you guys to get a listing. That will be wonderful.
Yes, we're excited. We get excited when to see that for our brokers.
Yeah, and if you get them priced right, they're going to sell.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to have. And then you got a happy seller, and they'll refer you to somebody else. And hopefully you just get that wheel going. So,
And it's just starting too. I mean, yeah, we're getting listings now, and it should be rocking and all the way through until about October. So
yep. Very, very well. So, okay, guys. Well, we appreciate you attending. And like I said, let us know if you have any other questions. Thank you for your time, and
Yes,
best
thank
of
you.
luck to you out there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
talk, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.